Welcome to Performance Driven Living, the podcast where we question everything. We don't tiptoe around tough topics, we walk right into them. Not to provoke, but to get closer to what's real. You might not agree with everything you hear, and that's okay. The show isn't about being right, it's about being real. These conversations are meant to stretch your thinking, challenge assumptions, and spark something deeper. The views shared are those of our guests and may not reflect those of the host or team. And while we dive deep into health, performance, and transformation, this is not medical advice. Talk to your doctor before making changes to your health or lifestyle. Take what lands, leave what doesn't. But whatever you do, don't stop questioning.
Cancer won't kill you, but ignorance will. The truth is, most cancers are treatable when caught early. At Cancer Check Labs, we offer a simple, reliable, and comprehensive blood test that detects real tumor cells before symptoms ever appear. It's not just about detection, it's about giving people the power to act early, stay healthy, and live longer. Sleep tonight knowing there is a tomorrow. Get checked today.
We are here at Changing Life and Destiny again, and I'm Mark Young, host of Performance Driven Living Podcast, and I've got a kind of a really cool story to tell here with our next guest, and this is Lara Mehanna. I was actually terrified of saying your name wrong there a minute ago, I got to be honest, not because she's scary, but because I'm a perfectionist. But Lara Mehanna is here actually with Cancer Check Labs. I want to learn about this, truthfully, and I'm going to tell you a quick story to kind of set this up, and that is, so I'm a freak about my own health. Like, I want to stay on top of things, so on and so forth, and yet,
That's good.
I think for those of us, we're at a health conference, right?
Yes.
Like, everybody here is a bit of a freak about their own health, or they wouldn't be here anyways, or they're just hypocrites. But, so here's the deal. I actually went and did a Prenuvo last June.
Okay.
And it didn't really discover anything that I didn't know, which
Right.
is good news.
Yes.
Like, that's good news, right?
Yes.
Bad news at a doctor's office is not what you want to hear. And Prenuvo, for those of you who don't know, is an MRI scan, and it does a full body MRI. They lock you in the cage for like an hour, and you just cope. Week later or so, they send you back all these MRI results, and they give you sort of like, this could be wrong, that could be wrong, so on and so forth. So I did my Prenuvo, and it showed me that I've got a fracture on my low back. I'm like, yeah, I know.
You know that.
It did show me that I had some weird thyroid function, so on and so forth. I'm like, yeah, okay, like I'll check those things out. But I ended up at that point, interesting enough, that was in June. In late July, August of last year, like I got sick. And I didn't even know what it was. And truthfully, I was like, this makes no sense. I was like waking up in the middle of the night with like fevers, and I would be at work, and all of a sudden I would just like spike 103-degree fever and just start sweating through my shirt. And I was like, what in blazes is going on? I'm like, all right, I just need to kind of sweat this out, right? So I would go home, I'd put an extra blanket on, not the plan, and I'm like, just sweat it out, whatever, like I'm not sick. Probably a week of that went on, and I was miserable, and I was traveling at the time.
Oh my
And I'm like, this is absolutely miserable. So I went back and I went, and a friend of mine recommended a general practitioner nearby. I live in Fort Lauderdale, and he's just like, I want you to just go see my doc, like go see him, whatever. And he went in, he ran some scans, and ultimately came back, and he's just like, all right, I'm going to do some tests. I really don't know much. And he's just like, I'm going to put you on this broad spectrum antibiotic because I see that there's an infection, but I don't really know what it's about. So let's just try to knock this out. And I hate antibiotics because I'm like, my gut microbiome means more to me.
Right.
But I'm like, all right, I get it because this is miserable. But he came back and he said, your PSA level counts are super high.
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, like my PSAs were over a 50.
Wow.
Right. So I'm a soon to be 50-year-old male. My dad currently actually has prostate cancer. My PSA levels were over 50. My Prenuvo came back and actually said that I had an enlarged prostate.
Enlarged prostate, yeah.
The problem is that when the scans come back and say you have an enlarged prostate, what a lot of people don't know is that there's really not a baseline for how big a prostate should be.
Right.
So because I didn't have a baseline reading, it's big, but it could just be big.
Right.
So they're like,
And
sure.
your scan doesn't tell you your PSA levels,
Correct.
right? So it just says enlarged.
The scan just says, look into this. But then a month later, I've got high PSA levels. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like, I don't want to deal with this. And I'm like, I need to deal with this. And I'm like, I need to go get this tested. I need to figure this out. So I took another round of blood tests, like after the antibiotic had kicked in and so on and so forth. And when all this happened, it came back, PSA levels were still pretty high. They were still in the 40s.
So you didn't do a PSA specific test. You just did another blood test.
This was like a full panel.
Full panel
everything.
blood test. Got it.
So everything came back, and I'm a healthy person,
Yeah.
right? I'm a healthy
Look
guy
very
anyways.
healthy.
Thanks, right? So, and I'm like, all right, so there shouldn't be any issue there. But PSA levels are high. I'm like, that's just weird, right? But PSA is also one of those things, like it could be higher in some people than others. That was particularly high. So I went into my functional medicine practitioner not too long later, and I'm like, look, here's the deal. I reached out, and my dad had recommended something called an oncoscan, and because he had prostate cancer also, and he's like, this is what you need to do. I'm going to get you the contacts, blah, 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 blah. You're not,
It's a closer scan to what the Prenuvo was. It goes in a little.
The Prenuvo's kind of like, and if it saw anything, it would let you know. But Prenuvo's doing everything from bone density to organ function to cysts and growths and everything else.
And as you age, you get a lot of lumps and bumps, and they can mean nothing,
right?
Exactly.
So the Prenuvo didn't give me anything definitive other than you may have a large prostate, but that may or may not be normal.
Right.
Then came this PSA test, and I'm like, okay, what in the world?
Right.
Then came me going in to see a functional doc because he insisted oncoscan, and I'm like, okay. So I go to the oncoscan website. I look to find a practitioner near me. Turns out the practitioner I call happened to actually be Sienna Steckel, who actually, funny enough, that exact same fall that all this happened, right around that same time, I was actually moderating a panel at a healthcare conference. The Sienna was on the panel.
Oh my gosh, such a small world.
Totally funny. And she and I like nerded out on this panel about this whole idea of disease as an identity and so on and so forth, because we align in a lot of ways. So Sienna says to me, she goes, the oncoscan, yes. She said, what oncoscan is going to do for us, it'll give a cancer test, but here's what happens. And she goes, oncoscan is only going to measure a cancer once it's developed to a certain level.
Right.
And she said, and with that being said, she's like, it's good because it actually tells you where the cancer is.
Right.
And she said, but I have this other screen that I would also like to do. And she went, they're both pricey. She said, it's up to you. And she went, but this other test I have from Cancer Check Labs, she said,
love it.
It's going to tell us if there's cancer because it's able to find cancer at a very, very small presence. And she said, now the problem is because it finds it at such an earlier state than even an oncoscan or a Prenuvo or anything is going to find it. Like this is early detection.
Yes.
So the issue is it doesn't tell us where.
Right.
And she said, she goes, I've been hoping that a patient would come along that was willing to financially invest in both tests simultaneously. She's like, so if somebody would do both tests.
Oh, amazing.
She said, I would love that because I've never seen the results side by side. And I'm like, just do it. Like, I don't care, whatever, right?
Like, I don't want night
my
sweats
ass is
anymore.
going to be around for another 100 years. So yes, figure that out. So she ran both scans. Both scans came back negative, thank God. PSA levels seem to be back to normal. Everything seems to be fine. I mean, it was some kind of acute something that I contracted. But everything's normal now. But I will tell you, my dad was oncoscan, so on and so forth. And I'm like, great. I'm like, but there's this other thing, from Cancer Check Labs.
Yes.
And the fact that you're able to detect even sooner. Now, I'm here. There's a lot of conversations I've had at the course of being here at this conference that I'm like, tell me about your product. And I'm like, I'm a user. Like, I've actually used you guys, right? So this isn't a made up story.
I love
this
it.
is a thank you.
Yes,
you helped
thank
me
you.
sleep the next night.
Thank you.
Talk to me. What do you guys do? What makes you, I always use the words, I'm a marketing guy, so that unique selling proposition, and I think I've kind of already sold you a bit, but talk
makes
to me.
us different?
Talk to me. What are cancer statistics? When are we finding things? What does the early detection mean for somebody in terms of treatment and survival? Like, I'll shut up and let you talk here, but I'm a storyteller.
Of course. Well, we know as, people age 1 in 4, will develop cancer in their lifetime. And that is what they've said normally, but we're seeing it on the rise. It's getting younger and younger and younger. And all the news now is about, people in their 20s and their 30s, right? Like kids' cancer is different, just getting diagnosed so early and what's going on. And we realize that early detection can really change the course of survival, right? If you get detected at stage 0, which is what our test can do, and I'll talk a little bit about it, your survival rate's like 99%. And your treatment options are much greater, right, than if you were to come in at stage 3, stage 4, right? Then you don't have as many options. So, we were continuously looking at this technology, and we have this filtration system that actually uses a lot of normal medical protocols, right? So we are not the test that's out there with fractions of your DNA and we'll apply AI to it. And, if you know anything about AI, I always say AI is only as good as the information you put in. Sure. So if you have partial information going in, you're going to have partial information coming out. And therefore, they're known to have false positive rates at 56.7%.
Oh, my.
Right? My CEO says always, he's like, you're going to have better chance guessing if you flip a coin, if it's heads or tails, than you are taking a test like that, if it's going to be correct or not. So if it's false positive so high, it's false negative so high.
Yeah.
Our test, there's no fractions. We are actually taking enough blood and we have figured out how to extract intact, whole, what's called circulating tumor cells. So as soon as a tumor starts to form, 1 milligram of tumor, it will shed what's called a circulating tumor cell. And 3.2 million of those will get shed in your body every single day.
Which is why you're not sure where it is, because it's actually circulating somewhere around
We
the
are
body.
looking at tumors. Over 200 tumors can happen in your entire body. So we are looking at your entire body. But by extracting it, it's similar to, I always say here, I'm a breast cancer survivor. This is where my tumor was, right? So when I say, when they extracted tissue, they extracted it here, right? Like that's where they took the tissue and it's the exact same kind of readout. So a board certified pathologist will then read it. But because we have the whole cell, we can look at the morphology of the cell. A regular cell looks one way. A cancerous cell looks very different, right? And we have images that we put up on our website. It looks very different. When you were to get a negative, you wouldn't see anything but normal cells. But if you were to get a positive result, you would get a picture and you could clearly see that it is a different type of cell. And because we're getting it at such a small tumor size, which scans will not pick up, right? Like that was her point. The scan's can't visually see it. We can say, yes, cancer is present. Now, okay, we can't see it in a scan. What do? Like that's where your Dr. Steckel will come in and talk to you about what she thinks is the right path. And we'll give you a second test to say, okay, did that help? But because our technology really is about isolating that cell and extracting a whole cell, it gives us a very clear read because a board certified pathologist is the one that actually determines if cancer is present or not. We are just extracting the blood.
So I'm gonna throw a number at you, and you can prove me wrong one way or another. So there's a whole conversation to be had about how everybody has cancer cells in their body, because technically cancer cells are equivalent of like senescent cells, right? They're non-functioning cells that have gone awry and they've duplicated wrong, and now they're there. But to the extent that they're doing damage is a different problem. So when people are diagnosed, quote unquote, with cancer, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when about 1 million cells have actually gotten together, and that could be tumorous, that could be fibrous, that could be any number of things, but it's when there's a concentration of those cells that are all together, that's when it's considered diagnosed, right?
So not in the way that we look at this. Now, that doesn't mean that's right or wrong. The way that we look at it, we're looking specifically at tumor-based cancers only.
Okay.
And tumor-based cancers, we always say, need to shed to spread. So if it sheds, those circulating tumor cells, which are not what you're calling, everyone's got cancer cells. That just means that you've got cells in your body that could turn cancerous. And depending on how you are treating your body, do the good cells win or the bad cells win, right? Like who's attacking who?
Correct.
Here, if a tumor starts to form and it sheds, these specific cells share the properties of the tumor. So it is a direct correlation, which is very different than those other cells, right?
So here's what, and I'll tell you, this is the comfort that I got out of the cancer check labs was cancer's present in everybody. Okay, let's agree to that a cancer cell or a pre-cancer cell is really just a cell that's lost its energy and now is starting to just zombie its way around the body, right? And there's multiple ways that we can be mopping that up, whether that's through, senolytics, whether that's through autophagy, whatever. There's a lot of different ways that we can be dealing with those, and we should be anyways. But you're able to detect something going on in the body at this stage 0 level is what you call it. And I think we're all familiar with stage 1 through 4, right? 1, of course, being early detection.
Yes.
Stage 0.
Yes.
You said 99% survival and treatability. Stage 0. Tell me, because I want to go someplace else because I want to go into frequency of testing and stuff like that as well, because stage 0 to me is great, but I got a negative test result.
Yeah.
So does that mean I just never have to do it again? But stage 0, I can at least be in some kind of comfort right now that from 0 to anything becoming a 1, there's a window in there that I'm probably okay for a bit.
Well, yes and no, right? It depends. Like, you are not even at stage 0. There are
there's
nothing detectable.
Sure.
From stage 0 to stage 1, yes, you could say, oh, you have time, but it really is about the properties of the cancer. As an example, I was diagnosed triple positive breast cancer, very, very sensitive to hormones. Hormones were pumping that tumor, right? And that could have the propensity to spread a lot quicker than other types of cancer, right? Depending what's feeding it. But, when you look at stage 0, mammograms, as an example, or other scans may not pick up a tumor at that size, which is why if we see those circulating tumor cells, so let's say your oncoscan, just speaking, I'm not saying it would happen, but let's say your oncoscan said that we don't see any tumors, but our test said, you know what, we found some circulating tumor cells. That probably would then correlate to probably a stage 0 diagnosis. And then you would be like, okay, well, how do
I got to figure out where it is.
Well, do you got to figure out where it is, or what do you do to treat it? Do you boost your immune system and just hit your whole body and then do the test again and see if it comes back as 0, right?
Yeah.
Or as negative, rather. So, it really depends on that. Now, it's how often you should do it. That's not 5 years is what I would say. We always like to talk about this in terms of every year you probably get your cholesterol checked, your sugar levels checked. You want to know where your baselines are. Now you've got a really good baseline. Now, there are different types of people. There are people that have a genetic disposition to cancer. There are people that have a family history of cancer. And there are people that are very, very healthy, or all three, right? And depending where you are, it could be every year. If you have a genetic disposition, you might say, maybe I want it every 6 months, right? If you have a BRCA gene, male or female, they usually are testing you every 6 months. So you could do this test because it will give you a little more specific determination if cancer is actually present, and you could do it every 6 months and, just see. But every 90 days, your cells seem to kind of evolve and change, right? That's when the readout might change. But, it depends on what your risk level is what I would say.
And how paranoid you are.
And I'm paranoid, right? Yes. I don't think people are going to take the test every day, but
right. Probably okay.
Right, but your dad is battling prostate cancer, so you might be a little bit.
No,
more
my dad's kicking prostate cancer.
He's kicking. Thank you. That's exactly what I did. Awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'll tell you, he's done it entirely naturally with mistletoe therapy and ozone bypass and multiple other things, and he's done completely natural health remedies, and it's undetectable at this point.
That's amazing.
Which is amazing. And over the course of a few years, and his answer has been, and his doctor actually gave the, it hasn't moved, and it hasn't moved in a long time, and you're not symptomatic of anything. Like, as long as it's not moving and it's not causing any issues, my dad's answer is, then who cares? He's like, I'm not going to live as a cancer patient conversation. He's like, that's not the way I live. That's not the way I choose to program myself psychologically. And he's just like, I won. And he's like,
that's awesome. And he could take our test if he wants one more level of peace of mind, right? It's like, is it, am I really circulating tumor cell free, right? Like that's
Absolutely.
what he wants to know.
So my
Good
question
for him.
for you,
Congratulations. I'm happy
thanks.
for
Yeah,
you.
I think it's great. So the conversation I want to go to, you just mentioned mammograms a minute ago. And I just have read quite a bit of information about mammograms. And obviously I'm a man, so I don't go get mammograms. But for women, this is like one of the most torturous things that you can imagine, right?
Yes.
And yet...
Very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I was just reading I can't imagine the equivalent. But I was just recently reading something about how mammograms are useless scans anyways. And about how mammograms are a modern torture device that really isn't doing. Now again, do they detect? Yes. But that there's so many other ways that cancer can be detected other than a mammogram, and yet that's where we go all the time. And we've trained everybody to believe that you're just irresponsible if you don't do it. But there's alternatives to this is where I'm going. And that is, would you consider yourself an alternative
Absolutely.
to a mammogram?
Absolutely, with better information. Now, I think when you look at it, women often are asked to get mammograms starting at the age of 35. But most people, when you were talking about your night sweats, I mean, I was thinking like, oh my God, with women, we think about this, we have to go through this with menopause
right?
all the time, right? And that's really that time when a lot of women are really thinking about it. But we've also had to have pap smears, which is a cervical cancer exam, since we were in our teens, right? So we are much more familiar with the risk of cancer, I think. And it was just like, okay, you can start to get mammograms. It was the way that people identified it. What they have found is I think a lot more people are having dense breast tissue, which is much harder to read. And in a lot of states, you can, if you have dense breast tissue, they'll let you then do an ultrasound afterwards, which gets a little closer. But ours is much more specific, right? We're not that women would want or not want to know if you have dense breast tissue or not. That doesn't matter because we're just looking for that tumor. So we are going to be a very, very good alternative for people. Like I think, I mentioned the BRCA gene, right? There are women who are diagnosed with the BRCA gene in their early 20s. And, you have a lot of people saying, well, you should get a hysterectomy. You need to get a bilateral mastectomy. They just started their lives. And a mammogram's not going to give them the answer. Our test would be like, okay, you can take this every year or every 6 months. And maybe when it starts to show, then you make your decision. Live your life a little bit, right?
And that's there's a peace of mind insurance that just comes along with this.
Absolutely.
And I think we're at a health summit right now where people are looking at these different modalities throughout this conference center. And it's, how do I optimize this? And how do I support that? How do I biohack this and EMF and PEMF? And like, we're in all these different things. And it's like cancer screening. I mean, it may sound crazy, but it's so bottom shelf.
Right. And people are like, well, I'm doing everything and I'm okay. But I'm like, but you don't know that. Cancer is indiscriminate, right? And you can do everything right. But the most important baseline is cancer present or not?
Correct.
Right.
That's exactly
the most
right.
important baseline.
And it's the same type of conversation that I was talking with Rowena Gates over at NanoV, and it was, your device is not a sexy cell is what I said to her. And I'm like, because all these things and these modalities that exist are targeting very specific systems and very specific symptoms in some cases.
Right.
And under all of those things are being attacked or they're being supported or whatever. I'm like, but yours is supporting general protein function.
Yes.
Like you're the rising tides that are just lifting all ships, that everything else they're doing gets better because you're there. And I'm like, that's not sexy. Like there's nothing about that.
Is the necessity,
but the alternative is terrible. And trying to explain, like even with cancer screening, like I can't think of a test or a modality that is more important because I can optimize the hell out of my brain, but if I've got cancer, what does it matter, right?
Right.
And the conversation, Bobby Kennedy, I don't know if you sat and listened to Del Bigtree's talk earlier.
I missed it. We were doing blood draws.
Oh, right?
Which is good.
He's amazing, and he was quoting. He goes, Bobby Kennedy always makes this comment, and he goes, he always makes the comment about a person with no health issues has 1,000 dreams.
Yeah.
But the person with one health issue or with a health issue has one dream.
Yes.
And, and I think we can do 1,000 biohacks, but the minute we have cancer present, like we have one problem.
Yes.
And what an easier way to sleep at night than just knowing that's not the issue.
It shouldn't be so hard, right? To think about why this is so important to you.
And when I got my test results back, when Sienna sent them and said, and I remember she actually sent me back my OncoScan first, and she said OncoScan came back clear, and I was just like, oh, good, that's great news. And she's like, well, yes, but I want the other one back too.
Yeah.
Because OncoScan may not have been able to see it, but I want the cancer check back, because if cancer check came back and said I don't see it, then I'm not worried about the OncoScan. But if OncoScan came back and said I don't see it, I still want to see the cancer check labs result.
Exactly.
Because
you got
just because OncoScan can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist at a presence smaller than what that one would see.
Right.
Same thing with Pronuvo, didn't see anything either.
Right.
Didn't mean there wasn't a problem.
Right.
An OncoScan may not be able to detect it, but doesn't mean it still couldn't even be smaller. And here's the deal. By the time Pronuvo sees it, it's already of a sizable mass.
Stage 3,
so I'm
right?
Probably stage 2, stage 3.
Much higher.
You know, maybe Onco sees it at a 1.
Right.
You're seeing it at a 0 if it even exists. And unfortunately, none of them did, so I'm good.
You're good,
But,
yes.
yeah, but the reality is like it opened my mind at least to say, I need to keep that in mind. Like I need to just do this regularly so that I just sleep easy. Like, because
Exactly.
I'll optimize myself, and I will continue to do my supplement routine and my workout routines and whatnot. But I also just want to know that the slate's clean.
Right. But you also now have validation that you are doing the right things, right? Like, I think a lot of these people, when they're doing all these biohacking, we see people like, oh, I'm doing everything right. And then they take a test and they might get a positive and they're like, well, I don't understand. Well,
I know what's working.
So
Keep
you're
doing
like,
more of it.
okay, maybe there's something else you need to apply to it. Like, it doesn't, if you catch it early, you still have a lot of opportunities, but you don't know yet what's going to work for your body or why your body is reacting. And you may have an indication of prostate, it was enlarged, your father, but there could be over 200 different types of tumors in your body.
Right.
We're only screening for 5. Right. And depending if you're male or female, you're not getting all 5, right? You're getting 2 or 3 of them. So 5, 2, 3 versus 200, right? So there's so much opportunity for tumors to develop. And you want that peace of mind, just like you said. You want to sleep better. You want to live better.
Well, and again, it gives you optimism, because the minute you get that bad news,
Yes.
everything changes.
Everything.
And everything stayed the same for me, fortunately. Let me ask you, Lara.
And it's a long journey. I mean, I know, right? I'm 13
You
years
do.
out, but it
That's
was a good
amazing.
10-year journey of a lot, right? No complaints. I'm glad I'm here, but
100%.
I tell people this is a sisterhood I don't want anyone to join, right? On the breast cancer side, right? But like the whole cancer thing.
We deal with a lot of clients at my marketing agency that deal with severe illness in some cases, and they have natural solutions and whatnot. I'm always talking to my team, and I'm like, guys, like, demographics mean nothing once you join that club.
Exactly.
Because take a person with breast cancer. It doesn't matter their income. It doesn't matter their race. It doesn't matter their education level. It doesn't matter their zip code. Like, they're one group of people now, because this identifying factor supersedes anything else that's happening. And I'm like, so demographics be damned once that enters the picture. And I think that's true. And I think less people need to be in the club.
I completely agree. And we had no family history, no indication, nothing. But now I have 3 sisters. They have to be more cautious, right? One of their sisters got breast cancer. So now, it changes
Everybody should
the
be a heightened alert.
dynamics.
So Cancer Check Labs, if I want to check this out, someone wants to, they've obviously got to go to a practitioner, I would assume, correct?
Actually, they can come directly to us as well.
They can.
So we are working with a ton of practitioners for sure, and growing every day. But you can come directly to our website as well. We make this very white glove. www.cancerchecklabs.com.
Cancerchecklabs.com.
Yep.
And they can order the test and do it at home.
test.
They can go see a practitioner.
Yep.
Can they find a practitioner on your site?
They can call us and we will direct them to a practitioner. And if they do it, we send the kid to home, we'll send them a mobile phlebotomist as well. We make it really, really simple, because we know people want to be their own advocates, and we want to make sure that, this is a tough process. Let's make it as easy as possible.
I love it.
Like, it was
Thank
so
you
easy
so
for
much.
you too, right?
Oh, well, yeah, I hit Santa.
I know.
Guys, I cannot stress the importance of making sure that on your health journey, we first have to make sure that there's no construction on the road, but when we take that trip, right? Yeah. Like Cancer Check Labs, I've done it. I'm telling you that I've used it, and it gave me the reassurance of knowing that nothing was going on with me. Thank God. Thank you, Lara, for being here and representing them and getting this word out. Thank you for sharing it and doing the test that you're doing right here at the conference. Guys, hope to see you soon, and check them out, cancerchecklabs.com. Information about it is actually in the show notes. Check them out, and we will see you soon.
Thank you
Laura.
so much.